Have you ever worked for a company that they say, "Hey, we're going to reorganize, we're going to retool, we're going to reinvent ourselves and adjust our mission and value statement," and they kind of do that every year, and then you kind of notice after the years go by, well, yeah, they did change that, but nothing really changed. It's the same administrators, the same dour fellow employees, and they keep playing the charade, and nothing changes. We have a candidate for RPV chair that actually represents real change. I got to tell you, I'm really excited about it. It's a privilege to have him. Let's talk to Scott Pio. Scott, it's great to see you. And I got to say right off the bat, thank you for being willing to consider and put things out that I'm just very excited about. What you're talking about putting into play as RPV chair is like stupendous. The last time I had this kind of excitement was when the Virginia Freedom Caucus had their 99 theses they nailed to the wall, but around the door, but they weren't even allowed to get near it to nail them up. Tell me, do I have that right? Is this just the drive to have some common sense, some real power and empowerment and useful tools for Republicans in Virginia? Or is there something I'm missing, perhaps?
I don't think you're missing anything. I think the Republican Party is a shell of what it needs to be, and the Democrats are whomping us in all certain ways, and we need to compete. We're not competing with them in any particular way, and as far as I'm concerned, there's no Santa Claus. Sadly, don't watch this with kids in the room, but when I say there's no Santa Claus, no one is coming to rescue us. So when you had to build a local GOP unit all the way to the top, the RPV is not going to come rescue us. The RNC is not going to come rescue us. We have to do the work ourselves. And if we want to change and we want to create a different organization from top down, you have to do it at the very top. And sadly, that's where we are.
Okay, so we're there, and I became frustrated initially when I became a unit chair. I went to the Advance, and they had their first ever unit chair training program, and it was nothing but WinRed advertisements, how to fundraise. I learned nothing about setting up a meeting, and I learned nothing about actually Robert's Rules of Order. I learned nothing about pratfalls and mistakes you can make. Nothing practical at all except money. They must have expected that I was some groomed person who was going to now take the mantle and play their game. I was very disillusioned. I haven't been to an Advance since. Some of the things that you've talked about, I just want to focus on the training thing. So, I mean, you've got like a 7-bullet thesis. Let's call it that. And I'm looking at my notes. Launch extensive training programs, not just how to do a little technique on GOP data center, let's say, but does the training include being better committee members, being better executive officers, having an actual program look what I did. I knocked over my light. Stand by.
I think he's very excited. That's what I've seen. He's very excited and he can't control himself.
Well, apparently I'm very excited. It just knocked over my lamp. That was funny. But the training, right? I was talking about, having an actual program at the primary tents and other sorts of things, membership drives. And I'm just blabbering. What does your launch extensive training programs really mean for the rank and file that are making an effort to be involved in a local unit?
When you come into this, you have to realize what it takes to run a volunteer organization. And I've been a part of several volunteer organizations, and I've ran several volunteer organizations. The LCRCs being, I think, my 4th volunteer organization I've run. You have to get people plugged in. You have to get people involved. And if you don't do that, you are not getting them working for you. So what does it take to get them plugged in and get involved? And that really requires a lot of training. It requires assigning duties, roles, and responsibilities. If you're going to bring a volunteer in and you have a position open, you got to plug them into that position as long as their talents align with it. So the RPV and the LCRC are doing a lot of training. We do a lot of documentation. We're going to take all of our training and all of our documentation and push it up. We've created hundreds of hours of video documentation of going through the steps of how to do this process and this workflow. We're going to push it all the way to the top. We have a multitude of things that we can help our GOP units with. Our GOP units are the grassroots, and for the longest time, in my opinion, the RPV is not really functionally cared. Unless you want signatures or you're doing a signature drive, Unless you want me to speak in front of you, I don't really care about what you're doing. I don't care about what you're doing locally. I think you need to self-form and potentially be creative, but I'm not gonna show you how to be creative. So the
Yeah.
RPV will certainly launch trainings, monthly trainings. We'll probably do even biweekly trainings, depending on how it is involved or how the RPV or how the units want to involve themselves. But the expectation is we're gonna have trainings every single time. It's gonna be a different topic. How to recruit, how to assign duties and roles and responsibilities, how to create a formal meeting, how to do fundraising. The LCRC is the top fundraised GOP unit in the entire state. We raise more money than even the Republican Party. We have more money and more cash on hand than most GOP units have across the state. And quite frankly, it's abysmal. And we need to be able to teach. We need to bring cash to our units, and in such a way that they are able to functionally perform for their candidates. The candidates are not here a year round. The candidates are here for 6 months, maybe 8 months out of the year, and that's it. But the unit, if functionally done, can be the epicenter of the organization. They could be the farmer that works the ground, tills the soil, works throughout the things that they need to work through, and they can help the candidates perform. So we have to teach our GOP units how to be better organizations and better
And
volunteer
I'm
organizations.
thinking when you're doing that, what you're also doing necessarily and organically is you're establishing a relationship, a personal say, oh, I know that guy. I went to his training. It was great. Now I know what I'm doing. I'm
No,
more
no,
excited
no.
about doing it. No?
I don't care about personal relationships. I care about getting the job done. So my background, I'm an engineer. I'm a software person. I execute, and I don't really care how it might worry someone. What really matters to me is just getting the job done and performing. Right? Like we're gonna provide merit-based opportunities to the people that want to provide volunteerism to their candidates, and we're gonna show them how to perform, and we're going to show them how to perform very well. One of the strategic objectives is to hire on the RPV. So we're going to hire 10 or 15 staff. We're going to raise enough money to hire 10 or 15 staff. And I would like to certainly get up to 30. I think it might be a little too bloated for 30. But one of those staff members is going to be a training person. We're going to provide trainings to our GOP units, and the staff member is going to functionally research, understand, comprehend before they start training. And then to our 120 GOP units, we're not going to drive to them. We're going to do Zoom trainings every single month, no matter what. You're going to get trained on how to do what, or this, or that. You're going to take the feedback that you learned at these units, and the feedback is going to provide a better way to do more RPV training to these units. The
So
goal,
you add on top of that though, right? You do what needs to be done to get the job done. You move on.
yep,
You knock off the punch list. But if
yep,
people are gaining value from it,
hmm,
they are engaged. You've got the relationship, even though that's not your goal. That's the
yep,
dividend. That's
yep,
what I find.
yep,
So I want to move on to another point. Let's just move on to the biggest point of impediment. For
hmm.
them, demonstrable impediment is the bylaws of the RPV and the way their antiquated structure, their self-serving, non-Republican governing kind of principles. It serves the state central committee. It doesn't serve the units. I don't think that's arguable. Um, a lot of these points that we want to go over in our discussion today would probably be articles within that. But that's going to be hard to do with the way that it's written, right?
Mhm.
And plus, we do want to make sure we don't
No,
leave
no,
out the point about how the RPV chair is elected this time.
the training will be not hard to do. The training is very easy.
No, I
Uh,
meant the bylaws change.
oh, yeah, I think
No.
the bylaw changes will certainly be hard, but if you bring it before the convention and you have enough support of all the units, you can get it done, right? So if I'm gonna have a bylaw convention or a bylaw reform, I'm not gonna put it in front of the 10 people or the 30 people that are gonna eat it all up. I'm gonna put it in front of the entire community and say, "This is best." In order to do bylaws, you just have to simply cut, 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 cut. Red tape, red tape, red tape, red tape. We're gonna keep some of it, maybe keep them 50% of it, but uh, we have got to perform better. And the bylaws at all the units, they do not allow our GOP units to functionally help our candidates until after their primaries or after their endorsements. we should be delivering for our candidates year round. If they announce in a year and a half early, or if they're a congressional candidate and they're in a sweet spot or a really hard plus D5 district, this is the major problem with politics, is we should be performing for these candidates year round. So if we have a D5 plus and we have a congressional candidate that wants to step up a year and a half at bat, and he's going to run for a year and a half, or she's going to run for a year and a half, I need to be able to help and provide services to that candidate before they even get out of the gate. If we don't do that, then we'll never get ahead of the D5 plus district.
Right, you'll
So
never be able to actually pull people out of areas that no one has farmed or
yeah,
cultivated for candidates from, right?
those bylaws are totally restrictive to us providing support to our candidates, to us being a lot more agile sort of organization. And we got to cut, cut, cut. And one of the things that I was told that we're going to change the bylaws, and it's on my list of things to do. And I've been told that for the past 3 years as chairman, and we never touched them.
That's right.
When I came into the Loudoun GOP, we cut the bylaws and we reformatted the entire thing from bottom to top, cut everything out, put everything back in, and we created our brand new bylaws in the first 8 months of chair. And I got a lot of pushback. Uh,
Yeah.
and even we're actually breaking a couple RPV rules because I think they're just not functional.
I
The
agree. I mean,
else,
we did the same thing. We gutted them and started over with an entirely new blank document when
yeah,
when I became chair the first time. Yeah.
you have to. There's no other way to do it. You have
So
to
there's
start.
another thing to do these things. I mean, yeah, and we want to talk about how the RPV chair is elected this time. It's not at a convention. It's because Rich Anderson went off to work with Trump, and so that's where the bylaws question was coming from. Because right now, certain things are governed. Certain appointments have votes that I don't understand why that's allowed to continue. I kind of know some of the history behind it, but before we get to that, I'm sick and damn tired of attachments or linkable PDFs and spreadsheets in terms of the cutting edge tools that we generally use. Yeah, we've got a data center, but no feature requests have ever been put in. It's awful. So you're an engineer, you're an IT specialist, let's say in a generic term. What type of rewarding gift could I hear about what you know you need to have so that you get the job done and you move on to the next task? And
Yeah, the first thing we're gonna do is buy our own data. We have a lease agreement with the RNC, and we can't do anything with that lease agreement. And because of the lease agreement with the RNC, we're not allowed to give out our data at pleasure or add to our data at pleasure. We have to go through the RNC and maybe make an upload to it, but most likely not. So the RNC won't accept uploads and won't accept changes from us. So we're going to first go out and purchase the entire data set for the entire state of Virginia. It's 40 grand. It's not a big deal. And we've been hearing the same excuse for the past 3 years. We don't own our own data, so we can't do anything. We'll just go out and buy it. We're going to put it in a data platform. We're going to put it in a CRM. If you know what a customer relationship management platform is, we're going to start controlling our voter data. The LCRC already does this. We already control our own data. We control the entire county of Loudoun. We went out and purchased it. We already control the entire voter file. We know in our voter file, and they don't know it at the state level. So what I'm about to tell you, they don't know it at the state level. We know how much money each voter makes. We know how many kids they have. We know their demographics. If they're black, white, if they're Arab, if they're Latino, if they come from a Pacific Eastern Asian country, if they come from an Eastern Asian country. But we know the entire demographic makeup of our entire county. We know how big their house is, how much their house is worth. We have 20 of their last used phone numbers in the last 20 years that they've been living there. We have all of their email addresses they've ever used in their entire lifetime. We are able to communicate to our voters because we have that information. And then we are able to take and perform that database. And when someone's out walking, or when someone's phone calling or writing postcards and something bounces or a door doesn't get answered, and we have to make a note to the file, we get to keep it. We can't keep it right now. It's shipped off to Campaign Sidekick, and Campaign Sidekick is an abyss. And I can't even imagine what Campaign Sidekick doesn't or does get to use with it. And we don't even own the data that we just uploaded to Campaign Sidekick. So we lose out on a lot of stuff by not owning our own data. We have a data analyst in-house at the LCRC. We should push those up to the RPV. Those data analysts crunch numbers all day long. It's not a data director of the RPV. It's a data analyst. There's 5 or 10 people inside the LCRC that crunch our voter file. We know our voter intensity levels. We know which precinct outperforms the other. We swung by 9 points in Loudoun County, and not one single GOP unit besides Loudoun County. I'm tooting my own horn, and I should be humble, but we should understand what precincts turned out versus which precincts didn't. The consultant shouldn't own it. The RNC shouldn't own it. The RPV should own it, and they should push it down to their GOP units and tell them this precinct overperformed, and you need to put more people into this precinct. And
Well,
we should
there it
give it.
is. That's empowering the local units for what gain? The gain that we have a better, more effective Republican machine
That's right.
to accomplish our goals. So this is like music to my ears. And when I read, you know, your 7-point document and some of the things that you wanted to bring to the table, it's like I really was. I got excited. It's kind of, I hate to say I get excited, but
Yeah.
I am. However, the trouble is, given the way the bylaws are now, given the way that the vote for the replacement chair is done and by whom, how would you be elected as RPV chair this time? And what date is that vote?
April 12th.
Okay.
There's 80 people that will vote based on this decision, roughly 80 people, depending on who's in and who's out. I've been making phone calls, and I've been making constant contact with these people. Sometimes they won't, and sometimes they do answer my phone. And sometimes they just tell me, I'm not voting for you because I already made up my mind based on past history. So I can't really do much. But April 12th is the vote. I have to convince 80 people to vote for me. And sadly, I think this is like just set up, so to speak. So the expectation that Rich was the past RPV chair or the current RPV chair was going to step out was real as long as Trump won his election. He needs to make some money. I get it. But the potential for having this as a setup and having people in a back room somewhere decide to pick who is going to be RPV chair, I think is deeply inappropriate. I think these people should allow for an election to occur. I think if you're going to step out, you need to allow for an election and not be handpicked. And I've already talked to Mark. I spoke to him for about an hour, and it was a long conversation. I asked him a lot of questions, and that conversation decided if I needed to run for RPV chair or not. And sadly, he didn't answer the questions that he needed to answer correctly. We have 500,000 Muslims in Virginia. We have roughly 1 million Latinos in Virginia. We have roughly 400,000 Indians in Virginia. And the Republican Party is a failure at messaging to those demographic groups. I asked Mark if he has ever stepped foot in a mosque before. And he says, we don't have any Muslims in Lynchburg. And I asked him, Mark, do you have any mosques in Lynchburg? And he says, nope. And I said, well, Mark, you got 2 mosques in Lynchburg. You actually have. So if you never step foot in them, if you don't know there's any Muslims in Lynchburg, how are you ever going to garner 200,000 or 500,000 more votes to win a gubernatorial race? If you remember, Youngkin only won by 5 digits. I think it was 60,000 votes or 30,000 between there. And so if you're going to wage war on the Democrat Party, so to speak, and you've never stepped foot in an independent voters' religious community, then you have no idea what you're turning yourself into and returning the Republican Party into. And I asked him, well, why are you doing this? And he says, I've been asked to raise money for the RPV. And so he presented to me the only reason he's stepping into this position is because first he was asked, and second, they want him to raise money. And I looked at his numbers. He's only raised $1 million in 10 years, and I've raised nearly 900,000. Not me. The committee has raised nearly 900,000 in 3 years. So whose numbers are better? The expectation that we're going to bring in a person that wants to run for AG in 3 years, and he didn't run for AG this year because we already have one, a very successful one for sure at that, that wants to run for AG in 3 years. He's going to step out of the RPV. He's not even going to run the RPV. He's just going to raise a bit of money, help support candidates. There's no functional work behind this. So
Right.
April 12th, I'm asking for your vote. These people have to understand, and they have to agree, and they have to listen. So if you want to help support this, you go to scottpio.com, scroll all the way down after you read the statement, or go to my Twitter feed, Scott Pio, scroll all the way down. you can see all their contact information, reach out to these people and tell them what for. These people need to know that the RPV needs to be something different than what it presently is. It's presently not what it needs to be, and we need to bring real value to our GOP units at the grassroots, and we need to get on the offensive rather than stay on the defensive.
So when was the RPV what it needed to be? Is it before my recollection? I mean, I showed up in 2009, right?
I've
And
only been here. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't either,
Uh,
right?
I can tell you that the just 7 or 8 or 10 years ago, we lost 20 some seats at the House of Delegates. We were a 60 plus majority, and so whoever failed big. And if you want to put blame at the RPV, you look at the RPV leadership, and you looked at 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, and you will see names. And I sorely think that they failed really big in order to us to lose a 20-person majority on the RPV. Why?
It was abrupt. Yeah.
The demographics of Virginia and certainly the demographics of Loudoun County are changing. And we do not control the state anymore as Republicans. We have to get back to the basics. We have to get back to the foundation. We have to go after the minority vote, and we have to go at them very hard. 2 million voters in Virginia make up the minority vote, at least a minimum of 2 million voters. And we won Governor Youngkin's race by 30 to 60,000 votes. So who's at fault here? Is it our fault?
I always blame the RPV. That's what I do. I always blame the RPV, and I think I'm right in doing so.
I think you're right in blaming the RPV. I think you're right in blaming a lot of things. Certainly, there's been very little execution as far as I'm concerned, and that pisses me the heck off. And being in Loudoun County, I have to deal with porn books in my schools. I have to deal with the transgender stuff in my bathrooms and my sports, and I have to deal with a school board that is totally untrustworthy. And I am a pissed off parent, and that's exactly why I'm doing this.
Got it. So I like the contact list, scottpio.com. That's SCOTTPIO.com.
Yes.
Good. I got to spell it right. So there, you scroll to the bottom, you can find the contact list of the SEC member that would represent your county.
Yeah, I just say copy all 80 emails there, put them on an email blast, and say vote for Scott Pio if you want to. But
okay.
Don't even nitpick. Just put them all on email blast and say vote for this man.
Yeah, well, that's why we have you on, and what you're representing, as I mentioned initially, is like, I mean, I've been kind of demoralized actually as a unit chair. I barely made it out of the success that I wanted in my county with an entirely wall-to-wall conservative Republican, whether they ran as independent or not for the various reasons. We got who we needed to govern the county once again, but it was white knuckle trepidation. And we were not united, right? There were some people who were like stuck on candidates and they would follow goofy stuff and come up with stupid conspiracy theories that the challenge of, well, some cases we couldn't nominate. So endorsements matter, but the RPV says you can't restrict membership based on endorsements. Well, we use those to legitimize funding of the committee endorsed candidates. It was a mess. But we managed to get where we needed to go. It's coming back again in a couple of years. But we've got a golden age. We got an umbrella to get some work done, because that umbrella may close up, right? And Virginia doesn't deserve to be blue. It's there's, as you mentioned, there's 2 million votes that the color of which their ideology is perhaps messageable and impactable.
Very messageable and very impactful.
Yeah. So we got Scott Pressler in Pennsylvania. Let's go talk to the Amish. Pennsylvania got flipped. You've identified a number of ethnicities and cultures that's where we are. RPV hasn't touched them, as you've illustrated, and I think they like liberty as much as we do too.
Yes, they do.
And they don't like being lied to any more than we do. So it's just like meat on the table. But God,
we have to go after them. And what the another thing that just frustrates me is there's no strategic plan. So like you were saying that we should go into these communities. We should have been going into these communities 10 years ago when Virginia's demographics were changing, right? So 10 years ago, we should have started this strategic plan of going into these communities and training our GOP units to go into these communities. And they've just sort of given up, or they've not interested. If you're in 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 plus red county, there's no reason to go into these communities. But when you're not thinking about the entire state, that every single vote matters, you need to go into these communities. You need to take your 60 plus red district and you need to turn it into an 80 plus red district.
Yeah.
Your job is to convert more voters. In Loudoun County, we still 10,000 votes away from the Democrats. You can actually see the numbers in this past congressional. 10,000 voters removed out of the Democrat column, and 10,000 voters got added to the Republican column. And we're going to do
So,
it statewide. We're going
so
to
this
start
this is
stealing voters away from the Democrat Party.
but this is demonstrable metrics. I mean, you've
Yes.
raised the money, you've expanded your base, you've done everything that you're advocating to see done statewide on a party level. Expanding the Republican base, that's bullet 3 of your 7-point plan. Boost volunteer engagement. We talked about that with training, and that's its own piece. Launch extensive training. We mentioned that. Restructure the party through bylaw reform. Gotta happen. Introduce economies of scale. Maybe we should conclude with that. It's item 7. Tell me more about when you have as a plan item, introduce economies of scale.
Yeah, 3 things. We have inside the LCRC, the Loudoun County Republican Committee, we built out a donor platform. We have every single donor in the entire country inside of our platform. We have every single donor in the entire state inside of our platform. And we buy data in order to contact these people. So the LCRC makes purchases to data providers to contact these people. And then the local candidate is unable to use donor data, and they have to scrape through with $2,000 or $5,000 and spend their own money to run some sort of race. If they only had access to this donor platform that the LCRC already has, if we brought this donor platform, push it all the way up to the RPV, gave every Republican candidate, every single one of them, access to this donor platform, they would know every donor in their county, their district, their municipality, their state, and they would be able to message them and ask them for money. You might think that we don't raise enough money, and it's true. The Republican Party doesn't raise enough money. Why? Because we don't know who the donors are. We've never collected that information and dispersed it. Who owns that information? Consultants. Consultants own it, and there's one consultant, sadly, in the entire state of Virginia that has made more than $10 million in the past 10 years off of this work. All he's taken is his donor platform. He's taken all the donors in Virginia, put them all together, and he hands it out to candidates that pay him $2,000, $7,000 retainers every single month. The RPV, if you look through RPV's financial statements, the RPV pays this person $2,500 every month, no matter if he brings in money or not. And the LCRC built this platform for free, and we're going to push it up to the RPV, and we're going to hand deliver it to every candidate statewide. And every candidate statewide will have access. So that's number 1. Number 2 is text messaging or purchasing of goods and services. The local GOP units should be able to provide this sort of information and this stuff for free to our candidates. They shouldn't have to pay a consultant or staff to find this information. If you look at Democrats and how they spend money, and you look at conservatives and how they spend money, it's quite the opposite. Democrats spend money on vendors. Republicans spend money on consultants, right? So when you spend money on a vendor, you're in direct correlation. I'm going to spend $1,000 and this vendor is going to contact 1,000 voters. When you spend money on a consultant, I'm going to spend $1,000 on this consultant, and there's no plus or minus how many people that consultant will contact. So all the races statewide, you look at how Republicans spend money and how Democrats spend money, and you'll see consultants on the Republican side, vendors on the Democrat side. And quite frankly, we need to take this and we need to start spending money on vendors at the RPV level, at the state level, at the county and district level. And we need to be the vendor ourselves as well, the RPV. We don't need to make any cash off our candidates, but we need to bring economies of scale. So cheaper text messages, cheaper signs, cheaper literature. We should be bringing our own print house into the RPV and providing these services at cost to our candidates. So that's number 2. And number 3, just economies of scale, technology. We should be able to push a button at the RPV and launch a candidate website. The candidate shouldn't have to pay $1,000 or $5,000. We should be able to push a button at the RPV and give a candidate an entire domain build out. So you get a free email address by the RPV at yourdomain.com. You get a free website by the RPV. You get free content. You get free information. The RPV, if it raised $3 to $5 million a year, we should provide every single House of Delegate candidate with a lump sum donation, $5, $10, $20, $30, $50,000 at a time. Every single person that runs for office as a state delegate that wants to run under the RPV flag, Republican flag, should get a lump sum donation by the Republican Party of the Virginia. And we just simply don't raise enough money. So economies of scale all the way through, and we're just going to start pressing buttons, and things are going to be provided for free to our candidates. And that's the goal.
If you got the essential resources, what better way to leverage it?
Yes.
You're gonna make me cry. I mean, it's like, I've always thought things like this, but maybe now they could be true.
I'm gonna share one thing. When I first made my announcement 2 days after or something, I received a memo. It's like a 10-page memo. I got it printed out. I went through it. I skimmed it. Everything that I'm saying now was already written in this memo a decade ago. Yep. I've came to the same conclusions that this memo came to a decade ago, and no one's implemented this memo a decade ago. Nope. And they pushed it all the way up to the very top of the RPV, and no one ever executed on it.
Well, the one I was looking back at the last convention, bringing these kinds of things, like from the Virginia Freedom Caucus, they weren't even allowed to present at the convention. It was just wrong and corrupt. It was just awful.
Yeah.
Anyway, you are the most powerful, the most funded, and most effective unit in the state. What better credentials to govern the party for the same results? That's where I'm coming from. ScottPio.com. Go to the list, send a blast email, see if you can turn some thoughts about this, because I mean, really, Virginia doesn't deserve to stay the stupid color blue. I mean, the federal government has DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. Right now, we're looking at the core functional gear of DOPE, Department of Party Efficiency. And I love it. Scott, thanks very much for having some time with us on this sip of tea. Hopefully we'll irritate some people and get some conversations going. I really want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you very much. Please go message to these 80 voters. If it doesn't happen, it's not going to happen for 3 years. If this doesn't happen, you're going to lose the gubernatorial races. You're going to lose the governor, lieutenant governor. There's only 60 some seats being run in the House of Delegates right now. They don't have 37 or so seats filled for the House of Delegates. That means that we are only fighting in something like 65 or 67 or maybe 70 seats or something like that. And that's a great frustration. So if you don't go out and message these 80 people, you're dealing with a Democrat governor, a Democrat lieutenant governor, maybe, possibly, and hopefully a lieutenant governor that's Republican. But then an AG that's Republican. But you're also dealing with the House of Delegates that's Democrat, and you're also dealing with the Senate that's Democrat. And they're pushing through 3 constitutional amendments. They're going to push through crazy amount of garbage bills that don't need to be here in Virginia. And you should be kicking and screaming about this problem. And if you're not, then you're not a frustrated parent.
Thanks again, man. We're going to stay on top of it. Godspeed.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. You're very welcome.